My name is Elizabeth.
My name is Paige.
I'm Melanie.
My name is Haley.
My name is Jazzy.
And my name is Marin.
We are Troop 4225.
What was the original goal or vision for the garden?
As it was explained to me, I think it was to provide an opportunity for the school to produce food for the school and have the students participate in that program.
Why do you help in the garden?
I see a huge importance with kids working outside and being in nature, but also a slight disconnect to where our food comes from, and seeing kids coming right in here, starting the seeds, harvesting the plants, and then eating it is really enjoyable to watch.
I like that students get to be hands-on. They get to see what they grow, they get to try new things, and they get to be outside with their friends, and they get to be outside of the classroom.
Why do you help in the garden?
Actually, I don't come and help in the garden helps me. I'm the coordinator for the Galesville Summer Lunch Program. This is our 3rd year, and we depend very much on all of the wonderful produce that is grown in the garden for summer lunches. Our first year we served 460 people or so, and then the next year, year 2, we served 1,400 people. The summer garden gave us over 650 pounds of produce that I didn't have to buy, so that we could feed people fresh vegetables and fruit, and it just made a huge difference in being able to provide excellent, nutritious lunches for the Galesville Community Summer Lunch Program. So the garden is vital to feeding people well. So I really appreciate all of the work that goes on in the garden.
I like watering and picking strawberries and raspberries, then secretly eating some.
I like all the flowers and fruits and vegetables that we grow in the garden.
I like all the pretty flowers and eating berries.
I guess I would like to tell you a little bit about how the garden started. In 2009, we started with one bed of chips on that side of the garden. We got a pile of old dirt that was sitting down in an area where the city had just dumped it from some project. And that summer we grew just a few watermelon, a few pumpkins. What I like about the garden is we're using up a space that formerly was locked. This old tennis court was built in the 70s, but the surface had become very cracked, and the city and the school district didn't want to maintain it anymore because it cost a lot of money and didn't have a lot of use. So the garden or the court was locked. And we got the idea for the wood chips as our base from another organization from the Milwaukee, Chicago area where they did this. They put wood chips down and then they got soil and planted in it. So we tried that, and it's been very successful for us. I probably enjoy working in this garden more than my own garden because it seems like on our asphalt surface here, in the spring, the surface underneath warms up, so our crops get an early start. And the wood chips provide a nice sponge. When it rains, nothing is ever standing in water. The wood chips absorb the water and spread it out. And then our soil that we've been getting has been coming from a farm called, the organization is called Cosmo, and he takes his cow manure, composts it, mixes it with some sand and some other ingredients. So it's a very rich, very organic soil, and that's what has been making our garden so productive.
And it's a very interesting concept. It's a style of gardening which I had never done before, and so it's been a learning process for everyone. And if you look around, it appears like it could be the top of a building in a big city. So it's not only gardening here out in the countryside or in a schoolyard, but it's similar to what you might find in the urban gardening setting. So for me, that was a very interesting concept to try to wrap our abilities around.
Oh, I like the variety of the different plants that we grow, but then also the variety of people that come in here and help, the different ages of students and the community members that have come and volunteered as well.
It's a great way for students to learn, a great way to be outside, a lot of hands-on activities, and they can see how things grow and change.
My favorite memory of this Galesville garden is doing art in the garden class in summer school.
I have done some summer school classes where we specifically called the class Art in the Garden. So we used the garden space to make art. We used leaves and flowers to make art, but we also used the plants as inspiration for our drawings and paintings. And then as far as in the school year, in our 9 months when we're in school, bringing classes out here with clipboards and letting them just kind of investigate and observe the garden space has been something we've done in the past.
When I took my master's class about 7 years ago, we did math in the garden, and I made all these lessons for how we could measure things or count. And at the time I was teaching second grade, and it was just really fun to bring them out here and do all those sorts of things. And now with first graders, we get to see how things grow, the parts of a plant, the roots, all those parts that help them learn about flowers and plants.
Well, kindergartners usually do garlic, so that's one of our favorite things to do is we plant the garlic in the fall, and then we watch it come up in the spring. We watch it grow and change, and we measure it, and we get to document how fast and how far it grows.
I love the garden because it has a lot of symbolism. This area used to be a dilapidated tennis court, and if you look around, something this amazing with this much life in it came from something that had just been forgotten. I love that it's a community place where all members of all socioeconomic, the whole gamut can come together and do good for the community and network and get to be friends with each other. It's a great place for friends and family.
Well, it impacts the students because some of the gardening takes place during the school year, and the final product, the vegetables or fruit, is used in the school lunch program or for students in the summer food program here locally. And also we currently have a couple of students who are actually employed here and who bring a certain amount of knowledge with them, and then it's also a learning process for them. And as you probably know, the Girl Scouts come here too, and they help, and then hopefully they're also learning at the same time. And they are students.
I remember one time in the garden when we went out with our little buddies from 4K, and we were looking for colors, shapes, and sizes for different flowers and plants.
School Garden began more than 10 years ago, and maybe as many as 13, and I believe it was initiated by Gene Wallner, who at the time not only lives close and is interested in gardening, but was also the school cook here at the Galesville Elementary cafeteria. And so she just saw the space out here, which is actually a double tennis court on asphalt, which is decomposing and is not longer serviceable for tennis. She said, "Why not there?" But it's not a growable surface, so I believe her intent was then to bring in wood chips and then put some soil on top and start the garden that way.
The original goal of the garden was to let children be a part of planting vegetables and fruits that we would then serve in the school lunches. And in 2009, I was a cook at the Galesville Elementary here, so I thought this would be a great way to help kids learn to try new fruits and vegetables and be involved right from the start by planting them and then growing them, watching them, and then hopefully eating them in the lunchroom.
How does the garden impact youth and students in our community?
I see a huge impact with students being able to take the produce right home and share it with their families. I also see a huge impact on when we were able to harvest and bring it into our lunches during the school days.
Is there a story or other information you would like to share about the garden and its importance in the Galesville community?
In the Galesville community, I see a huge importance with just a variety of age levels. Like right now, we have some middle schoolers and future high schoolers working in the garden and getting paid for their time here. But I also see, my little one, she's 3, and she comes in and helps right along with the other kids. So just the variety of ages that work together to help the community is great.
When you come in the garden, does it help your class learn?
Absolutely. We do different things from math, measuring the garlic, to looking for shapes, and we get to find different things that start with different letters, so we do all kinds of different academic things in the garden.
Well, as the head cook at Galesville Elementary, it's very important that we facilitate a partnership with the garden, because much of the produce that comes from this area is food that we serve to the students at school.
I like that our kids learn how to grow vegetables. They learn where their food comes from, that all of the kids in the school get the opportunity to be planting and growing stuff, and how accessible it is for everyone.
Why do you help in the garden?
Because I'm very interested in gardening. This is my first year doing it.
What is your favorite thing we grow in the garden?
The strawberries.
I remember one time when we were helping with the Bronze Award, we picked up different types of weeds and made a weed salad, and we described what the weeds were and what they look like and what they're called.
I just have learned a lot from Mrs. Wallner coming out here, because I'm not a gardener at all, and it's made me want to do more at home. I planted lettuce this year, and I'm growing that at home.
Everything that's in the garden is natural, and it doesn't have any stuff on it that they've sprayed or anything.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful that we have this spot right in our front yard of our school. It's beautiful, and the more help in this kind of place, the better, because all the kids get to benefit, and teachers too.
The garden gives our youth and the community fresh food to eat, and it gives them an example of how you can do it. And I know the students at Galesville Elementary spend a lot of time out here in the spring planting, and they get to see that this is good for them, and actually it tastes wonderful. And some of their parents look at their plates and they say, oh, they put a cucumber on there and peppers. I didn't know they ate that. So it's been real inspiring for parents too to see what their children eat from the school garden.
Well, as I said, I think it's very important that the students get a good nutrition, and I think it all starts here. The wonderful thing about a school garden is we know exactly where this product came from. We know the people that planted the seeds, that cared for the plants. It's all about life. Not only does it give life, but it sustains life too. And as I said, it is symbolic, but it's also quite literal. It provides things to help you guys grow as students, and it's just a great concept.
How do you incorporate the garden in your art classroom?
I have done some summer school classes where we specifically called the class Art in the Garden. So we used the garden space to make art. We used leaves and flowers to make art, but we also used the plants as inspiration for our drawings and paintings. And then as far as in the school year, in our 9 months when we're in school, bringing classes out here with clipboards and letting them just kind of investigate and observe the garden space has been something we've done in the past.
Oh, I think all of my students like coming out to the garden because it's different than the classroom, and because they get to see things and taste things and just be outside.
Is there a story or any other information you would like to share about the garden and its importance to the Galesville community?
The story, well, there are lots of stories. It's just a very interesting spot. It's centrally located. We do try to raise some crops along the fencing, which is quite high and keeps most of the critters out except a few bunnies occasionally. And we rotate the crops so that sometimes we have tomatoes along the fence to my right, and those tomatoes sometimes grow through the fence, and so when people walk by, they're welcome to try out some of the produce here from the garden, and hopefully that gets them interested.
I think it gives our kids a chance to understand a lot more about where food comes from. A lot of the students might not have the opportunity. I know that at our house we don't really garden, and so my kids wouldn't have the opportunity to grow their own food or to do any of this or to really learn a lot without the school garden.
Teaches them about where food comes from. It helps them to see how the food starts out and where it ends.
How does the garden help you learn?
It helps me learn because it's a habitat for a lot of animals.
Well, I think it's wonderful that kids get to help and they get to feel what it's like to work and have something come out of their work. So when you plant something, something grows and you get to eat it or enjoy looking at it.
I help because I enjoy being with the kids, and I also like gardening.
I love the variety, especially all the lettuces, and that people can make a salad with to go with their sandwich or their hamburger that we serve at lunch. And I love the strawberries. They are wonderful. And then last year, Jean had these wonderful little melons that were just awesome. Very sweet and very lovely.
So when we grow cauliflower, it's not your typical white cauliflower. We've grown macaroni and cheese cauliflower, so it's like an orange color, the different kinds of beans, things that you don't usually see in the supermarket. Those are my favorite things.
Well, it provides us with necessary produce. If I run a usage report to look to see what I'm ordering from our grocery company, the top 10 items on that list are always produce, fresh produce that we serve on our salad bar, or like, cooked beans if we have the green beans on the hot service area. And it saves us money, and it's just a good quality, chemically free product that we can give to the students.
In addition to those crops, and the strawberries, of course, which are now just finishing up but are still quite tasty, we have lots of cabbage, and we've got the beets. The carrots love this medium of this light soil on top of the wood chips. And pretty much every vegetable which kids might eat, and a few which they need to try. I don't know if I mentioned the beans. And we actually tried asparagus, which was like, how can that be, since it's a deep-rooted crop? But it is doing very well.
What was your original goal or vision of the garden?
Originally, what we hoped would happen would be that the children would become a part of building and planting the garden, and that would have an impact on the food choices that they would make in their lunchroom and maybe at home too. And I'd say we're kind of following that. A lot of the kids have expressed that when they go home, they share some of the ideas that they get from the garden, and vice versa. We learn things that they've done in their gardens at home, and sometimes incorporate those in the garden here. So it goes both ways. Everybody's learning, including me. I feel like I've learned to be a better gardener just because I've hung around with everybody that's helping here.
What would you like to see added, or what would you like more of in the school garden?
I always think we need more flowers, because the more flowers we have, the more pollinators we have, probably helps with our germination. And of course, the more colorful and the more attractive the garden is. I also think sometimes with all the land we have outside of the perimeter of the garden, maybe at some point we could expand and have more crops and potentially be adding more to our school lunches, or even more to the community, offering more of our food to the community.
How many pounds of food have been harvested in the garden overall?
Overall, that's a tough one. But I can tell you the last summer was our highest amount, and we got 2,500 pounds, which is like a ton and a quarter. The previous 3 years, we were close to 2,000 pounds. So, and those were probably the most productive years. Some of those years before that, we were still learning how to do things and lay things out. So it's very productive.
Thank you.
One thing that we did in the garden for our bronze award is we weeded an entire patch of weeds right next to the fence.
I liked always seeing a bunch of frogs in the garden.
I liked overall working in the garden because it was a fun and a learning experience.
I liked hearing people's opinions on what they liked about the garden, why they help out in the garden.
I liked helping in water and weed and pick everything, and then seeing how it was or how it grew from when we went the last time to the next time.
We are Troop 4225. Thanks for watching.